Hi guys, Happy New Year. Let's talk about the 5 books I read in December. At the beginning of the year, I read the Patchett essay, These Precious Days in Harper's, and let me tell you how not okay I was afterward. Blubbering, ugly crying for this incredibly deep and profoundly human experience we call love and friendship. This was my first time reading anything from Patchett, and I was blown away. She writes about her meeting this woman named Suki, who is Tom Hanks' assistant, and how she ends up taking care of her while she goes through cancer during the initial COVID lockdown. It's a chronicle of their brief but intense friendship, a reminder of the value of human connection. So when this book of essays came out and I saw that the book jacket was made up of Suki's paintings, I had fresh bouts of ugly crying all over again. And once more, when I read through it, rereading the title essay, and for the final time upon finishing the book, I was messed up. My heart was in tatters, eyelids swollen. How beautiful and fragile and indeed precious it is what days we have. It's funny how writings about death can be so life-affirming. And I know she's a veteran author, but good God, can she hit a note, can make you feel the horror of a beautiful sweater being unraveled in order to knit a new one just for funsies. I highly, highly recommend. Another pre-order that I couldn't wait to dig into was Painting Time by Maylis de Kerangal. I read and loved The Cook back in October and was so ready for this story about a young painter figuring things out, figuring out her place in life. I was a painting major at school, and that was an incredible time of my life that I look back to fondly. Although I feel the truth, especially with lines like, the first element of painting is not painting, but going out in the world and having a beer, and acknowledge some beautiful passages describing human connection and loneliness, and for every reason this should be right up my alley. I couldn't connect with it and even dislike it a little bit. One of my pet peeve themes I've come to discover the more I read is young adults being filthy, whether with poor hygiene or substance abuse, being self-absorbed and self-conscious to the point of emotional frigidness from their debilitating fear of revealing anything about themselves. I noticed this cultural aspect in another French book I read this year, where the parents of these little shits go out of their way to not harsh their kids' vibe, to not be cringe, and above all, to never embarrass them. The parents of this painter daughter do their best to hold back all their gross gush, and my favorite parts of the book are the numerous times the girl casually describes always finding her cute parents, cooking their cute dinners, vaguely recalling a fight here or there in her childhood, completely oblivious to anything outside her own myopic reality, and blind to everything her parents do in the background, spinning the wheels to support her choices. One of the books I wanted to get into this year, but was kind of afraid to, is Pachinko by Jin Lee. It's somewhat of a granddaddy of Korean contemporary lit, and it's also on the lengthy side, but the near 500 pages flew by. This is so good and a must-read if you're Korean or Korean adjacent or just interested about the country's history. Or if you have Korean friends and you've always wondered why they are the way they are, with all their passionate energy, the chips on their shoulders. Or if you're Korean and you've wondered why your grandmother is the way she is. It's about the community of Koreans who lived in Japan during the early 20th century and the racism they endured, and the hardships and deprivation Koreans experienced over the course of colonization and multiple wars when they lost their country and were citizens of nowhere. Jin Lee deserves every accolade for telling this little-known and forgotten history of modern Koreans. It reminded me of watching an interview with a group of Korean women at a Black Lives Matter march where they were asked why Koreans should care about the movement. And they responded that for a Korean to not support a minority group in crisis is to be ignorant of their own history. This is fiction at its best, when you feel the undeniable truth within the story, when you hear the voices of lives long gone calling out to you from the page. Living every day in the presence of those who refuse to acknowledge your humanity takes great courage. Beyond the dailiness, there had been moments of shimmering beauty and some glory too, even in this Ajuma's life, even if no one knew it was true. Another book I felt urgency to finish this year is Milkman by Anna Burns. I always loved the cover, and now that I know the meaning behind it, the subversiveness of a sunset, I love it that much more. I read this during the week of Christmas, which was really off-putting because this is maybe the creepiest book I read all year. It's a nightmare of living in a totalitarian state where everyone around you, including your neighbors and family members, is a possible enemy you cannot trust, and your only choice is between being alone or joining the group despite all its glaring wrongs. The scariest bit isn't even the stalking, the lingering hostility, the toxic masculinity and misogyny. It's the rabid tribalism that's just as rabid and rampant today. The female protagonist has a habit of reading while walking to take herself out of reality and into 19th century literature. And by God, if I'm not seen. That's part of the whole reason why I started reading more books, because I wanted to read less news and decrease my daily rage. I really enjoyed the unbroken, run-on sentence narration and the importance of the language used and the names unused. She has no name, she's just a girl. Her boyfriend has no name, and he's not even boyfriend, but maybe boyfriend. For how tense this is, there's some lulls in here, especially anytime she talks about her wee sister's antics, as if humor is the only coping mechanism to counteract the darkness. And finally, after much prodding from Jalen at the bar in the bookcase, I finished a year out with I Hold a Wolf by the Ears by Laura Vandenberg. Again, not a happy little holiday read. Pain, bereavement, haunting. The sight of my best friend and his wife dreaming together left me feeling like I had never made the right choice in my life. The brutal weight of last. The ghosts I killed to survive. I want a sober way to exist outside time. It's almost like the girl from Painting Time, aged 10 plus years, and is now living in this book, jadedly bearing witness to the degradation of society crushing upon her. The pitch is exquisite. Your second wife is everything brilliant and wrong with American capitalist gig culture. What a memorable reading month this was. I hope you all had a great December. Thank you so much for watching. See you next year.